Welcome to a brand spanking new episode of Who Do You Think You Are? An exploration into how our thoughts, beliefs, and feelings create our reality. My name is Lastia Cahoot and I'm your host. I'm joined by my co-host on this show and in life, Glenn Sheridan. Every episode, we're joined by a special guest who inspires us to consider not only what we think, but how we think and how that thinking impacts our life experience. It's time to get this conscious conversation started as we ask today's guest, who do you think you are? Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Who Do You Think You Are? My name is Lastia, and I am here once again, as always, with my co-host on this show and in life, Glenn.
Hello there.
And today I am beyond excited, beyond thrilled, super stoked, the epic zeitgeist, the most I could possibly be, because we have with us today a super special guest who is also someone that we don't know personally. So I think this is a first for our podcast. So it is someone who I have come to know a little bit, like this much, through one of his works that my Thursday night advanced consciousness studies class, which I may have mentioned once or twice on this podcast, which we are reading right now and discussing, and which is totally blowing our minds and pulling things apart, and is the impetus and the inception and the foundation and the unfoldment of this incredible, amazing conversation that is just going on and inside out and twisting, turning, and whatever. So our guest today is someone who is considered a pioneer in the field of spiritual emergence. He considers himself a wounded healer in private practice, assisting others who are also awakening to the dreamlike nature of reality. He is a published author, with one of his books being Dispelling Wetiko, Breaking the Curse of Evil, and the other book being this one right here, The Quantum Revelation, a radical synthesis of science and spirituality. And this is the book that my class has been studying, I think, for the last 2 months or so. And we're only doing, I think, 2 chapters per week, 1 or 2 chapters per week. We're only about halfway through the book. And it is just, every single page is so chock-a-block full of ideas and concepts and creativity and just the stuff that makes you think and wonder and be curious and just take pause to ruminate and marinate on all of this incredible stuff that is so different from what we might have been used to up until, delving into this quantum world, which is what is this book is all about. So in the introduction, one of the things that our guest today writes is, studying quantum theory is like ingesting a mind-altering, timed-release psychedelic that keeps coming on with greater intensity the more I wrap my mind around what this world-changing revolutionary theory is telling us about the nature of reality. And earlier on in the preface, there's a line that says, the quantum theory is a boundless gift beyond measure, an ever abundant gift that keeps on giving. We talk about going down the rabbit hole quite often, as does our guest today in this book. And let's see, in just part 1 of the book, because I'm just getting into part 2, the titles of only some of the chapters are Participatory Universe, Objective Reality Hangover, Self-Excited Circuit, Stranger Than Fiction, Quantum Buddha Nature, and Uncertainty, just to name a few. So with all of this, there's also the fact that this guest today is the founder of the Awakening in the Dream community in Portland, Oregon. He is super steeped in the work of Carl Jung and has been a Tibetan Buddhist practitioner for over 35 years. So all of this, once again, just scratching the surface of who and what our guest today is. So without further ado, and with so much curiosity and wonder and anticipation, I would like to introduce to everyone today, Mr. Paul Levy, and ask him the big question of the day. Paul Levy, who do you think you are?
I have no idea. And I don't know what to say to that, but one of the things I learned about quantum physics is that a lot of the physicists were saying it's a lot more important to ask the right question than to find the right answer.
Mm-hmm.
And that feels like a right question. you know? And yeah, and all I guess the one thing that comes to mind is I've accessed in myself, very thankfully, because if I didn't, I would have been in deep trouble, this unbelievably well of seemingly infinite creativity. And as I express myself creatively, basically through my work, my books, and my work with people, the more I express myself in a creative way, the more I have a sense of getting to know myself. And the self that I get to know, what it wants to do is express itself creatively. And then the more I express myself creatively, the more I know myself in a self-generating feedback loop in which I seem to be creating myself anew every moment. So it's pretty cool.
So, okay, let's talk about creativity then, because creativity is something that until very, very recently, I very much equated with artistry. And now, the philosophy that I study, that is sort of the grounding and founding of everything that we're taking in our advanced consciousness studies class, that sort of has been the jumping off point for this delving into quantum theory. It's the Science of Mind and Spirit by Dr. Ernest Holmes, and it is part of the New Thought movement. And and so creativity, I remember even in my first class that I took, the final assignment was do a creative assignment that has something to do that somehow illustrates the last 10 weeks that, of learning and of evolution and expansion. And for me, immediately, it was sort of like, oh, so I'll be, writing a poem or creating a piece of music or, some kind of artistic piece or interpretive dance or something like that. But as, going on through these studies, and it very quickly became apparent that everything is creativity. Everything is, and everyone is creative. It's just creativity is expressing all the time. Artistry is just but like one way, or artistic expression is just one way of creativity showing up. So when you talk about creativity in terms of yourself, how does that show up in your life? How does creativity express itself through and
Well,
as you?
yeah, well, I point out in my work again and again that our nature is to be creative. We are creative beings. We're made in the image of our creator. And it's not just our nature, it's the most essential part of our nature that we're these creative geniuses, each and every one of us. And we have this creative genius and it's in our possession 24/7. It's our nature. And accessing that creative genius, I've been saying this more and more, is the solution to all the myriad world crises. And I can prove that and show that. But there are a lot of corollaries to that, and one of them is that to the extent that we're not, that any of us are not in touch with our creative nature, then that creative nature which we have and are 24/7 gets turned against us and gets expressed in a destructive way. And when that gets collectively played out by, by the majority of 8 billion people who are not in touch with their creative nature, yeah, they're going to dream up this incredible destruction, which is what we see happening in the world. And our creative nature is it's like we have this immense superhero power, but we both don't know we have it, a lot of us, or we don't know how to use it. And, to just give you an example of our creative nature, there are some people who actually think they're not creative.
Mhm.
And so their creative genius is literally getting turned on themselves to create a very convincing experience that they're not creative. So
Yeah.
they have all the evidence confirming to them, well, no, I'm really not creative, without realizing that they've conjured up that experience, which is an expression of their immense creativity.
Yeah.
And quantum physics, if I can go into how quantum physics is like unlocking, it's literally unlocking, or I would love to talk about that at a certain point during, today's talk. It's unlocking the most unimaginable creative power that we all have, you know. That's kind of why I wrote the book.
Well, and again, this book, every single page, every single paragraph is so rich. There is so much in there. Yet when you sort of, pull out and kind of look at the bigger picture, it's very simple. Yet try to articulate that simplicity, try to practically apply it, on in your day-to-day sort of thing. That's the biggest thing that we talk about in class is, now that we are aware of this, now that we are opening ourselves up to this rather than, a worldview where everything is founded in matter, or that there is something, even when we talk about, something greater, a power, an energy, a universal intelligence, that it's not, is, as much as we try to speak of it in terms of oneness and unification and identification, that it's not just that there is this incredible thing, it's who we are, it's what's happening all the time.
Mm.
And that we're being creative all the time, whether we think so or not. And that there's just these infinite possibilities of this.
Yeah, can I say something about that? Because so I had this whole this life transforming spiritual awakening in 1981 that almost killed me, and it got me in deep trouble because I was so ecstatic at what I was realizing. And I was realizing that we're having a collective dream, and I was, seeing the incredible possibilities of what would happen when more of us would have that realization, and we could connect with each other and literally, change things, including ourselves and the world. And during that next a little bit under 2 years, I was in this unbelievable sublime state where every moment was creative. Like you were describing, I would wash the dishes and it would be like a complete creative experience, not any different than when I would be painting or something like that. But of course, the culture, in a way, I right away got thrown in hospitals, and because it was like I had had a radical personality change because I was so excited. I was in my early 20s, so I couldn't have been prepared for what I had realized, and it literally got beaten out of me. As I got hospitalized and medicated and diagnosed, and then my family bought into the diagnosis. And so at first I thought, oh, that was a big mistake that I had made. I really screwed up. But then I realized, no, that was actually part of the awakening. That was a descent into the underworld of the unconscious. And having, being able to reframe that really helped me. But the point is that what you were saying, yeah, when I talk about being creative, I'm not just talking about painting and drawing. That's a flatland idea of being creative. The point is that this life is our canvas and we are creating. See, quantum physics is showing us that we are literally participating in the evocation of our experience of ourselves, that we are creating our experience of ourselves and our experience of the world each and every moment. And I mean, if I could just give you a little bit of a sense, because well, even before I do that, I just want to say, so people think, quantum physics is so esoteric and convoluted. Not at all. It's actually every moment of even in our relationships. I think it's the biggest chapter in the quantum physics book is about the everyday, ordinary, just, day to day being alive, how quantum physics is informing how we dream up each other, and then how we get conditioned by our mind and react to our projections. And that's all quantum physics is literally like offering us the map to unlock that. And so, to just say a little bit about where quantum physics fits into this, because it's so fundamentally simple. Before quantum physics came on the scene, scientists thought this world objectively existed, and they were just passively studying it, trying to understand how it worked. Quantum physics comes along 100 years ago or so, and it proves empirically that the idea of an objective world is just that. It's an idea. It has no correlate in actual reality whatsoever, except as an idea in our mind, that the act of observing this universe is actually influencing the universe observed. And what that means, that's the rabbit hole that I go through. What it means is that the act of observation is creative.
Mhm.
And how we interpret reality, the meaning we place on reality, is actually our perception of reality is a factor in the equation of reality. We're not separate. We're participating through our perception, through our observation, interpretation, meaning making in actually creating our experience. So what that means is that quantum physics is showing us, by the act of observation being creative, we actually hold. It's like we have this magic wand, and we don't even know we have it, and we have this immense superhero power to create our experience. And so that's in essence what quantum physics is showing. And then to answer, who am I? So quantum physics promotes itself to become a spiritual path.
Mhm.
And I have no idea if this is like the worst nightmare of scientists or if it's their wet dream, because the idea being, when you realize that there's no objective universe, well, wait a second. I, as a subject, I need an object to be in relationship to in order to be a subject. And if there's no objective universe, then what happened to me as a subject? The
Mhm.
point is, when you realize that there's no objective anything, there's no things, that a quantum universe, and this universe is quantum on all scales, there's no separate things interacting. It's all a seamless whole. It's a non-local field that's interconnected at every point in space and time with itself. When you realize there's nothing objective, it sheds light on the subject, on the nature of who we are in all of this. And that's where quantum physics promotes itself to become a spiritual path. And one of the founding fathers of quantum physics actually says the real key task of science is to answer one question. And that question is, who am I? And that's what quantum physics is offering us.
So see, this is what our class is like, but there's 20 people in our class, all talking from a slightly different perspective, their own worldview, chiming in. And as someone says something, then these ahas come, and it's just this malleable, expansive, twisting, turning, evolving experience and activity that is unfolding and emerging all at the same time. And so one of the questions that we spent a lot of time on this past Thursday was, what is observation? Because a few weeks ago, one of my classmates, who has been touted sort of as the skeptic in the group, and for the longest time, it was sort of, prove to me that this is real and this is true, and then I'll believe it. So yet he's a fantastic practitioner, and gets the main tenets of the science of mind philosophy anyway. But we were talking about, is there an actual observer? Is there like a big ultimate sort of observer of everything that is going on, that is sort of, the impetus or the inception, for everything that is unfolding as we perceive and observe? And maybe not, maybe there's just the act of observation, just like it's what's happening all the time. And either way, what is observation, and who is observing? If we're all dreaming up and imagining and creating the experience that we're having, from each of our individual or individualized experiences, perceptions, and I'm just kind of grasping from all these areas in the book right now, the idea of, when you mention Wheeler's baseball pitch, analogy of thousands of baseballs being thrown, that each have their trajectory and history. But when it comes down to the batter actually hitting one, it's like the one that the batter has sort of focused on or chosen, that has collapsed into the beingness or actualized reality of him or her hitting the ball. Yet that one ball has all of the history, like trails of this, the history of all of those other thousands of possibilities of trajectories. That's kind of trippy and loopy to think. How does that work? How do we wrap our minds around that? And how do
Yeah,
we start to use this magic wand that we're just beginning to realize that we have, to,
yeah.
use our superpowers that we even just are, never mind need to sort of use? Like, how?
Yeah. No, it's so, you're right. That's what I mean when I said it's like a psychedelic that just keeps coming on. I mean, I'm in the process too of deepening my understanding of it. And so one thing, I mean, there's a lot of ways I can, contemplate that question. And like one thing is that quantum physics is, it's showing us that this universe is pulsating in and out of the void every moment. So every moment it's completely new. And it's a simulation of the previous moment, but with a slight difference. But we don't have the perception to see that. We just see it as a continuous solid universe. And so that in each moment is a whole new quantum event. And from another point of view, you could say this is like the complementarity principle of quantum physics. Each moment is the same event, is the same moment, because there's no time in quantum physics. There's just the eternal now.
Mm-hmm.
And and then, say if we have a particular, so here's one way of beginning to wrap our minds around what what you brought out. So you have a quantum entity which exists in every and any state of potentiality that it ever possibly could up until the moment it's observed. And then whoever observes it, and whoever we are, or if it's even, an insect or whatever. I mean, it's just, it's a really interesting contemplation. But from one point of view, each of us are the singular instrument for the divine. We could call it the divine, to actually have an experience in space and time, because it's outside of space and time. But say, so any one of us, we observe that quantum entity that exists in that state of infinite potential. Our act of observing that quantum entity collapses the wave function, so to speak. It actualizes into a particular manifestation. And that's the universe that we experience. And all the other possibilities, they just vaporize into parallel worlds as if they never existed. And then we entrance ourselves in thinking, oh, well, that's subjective. That's separate from us. Like we had nothing to do with creating that. But no, from the quantum point of view, the observer, the thing observed, and the act of observation are all one interconnected quantum system. They're not separate parts. And that process is happening each and every moment. And what that means, it's so mind-blowing, because what that means is that even if one of those potentialities that was unbelievably, ridiculously unlikely, such as our species actually awakening collectively, at least sufficiently to the point where we're able to not kill ourselves. And some people think, oh, that's unbelievably small possibility. But quantum physics is saying, yeah, but that could be this very moment. As long as it's a potentiality, that could happen. And if we're not envisioning that, then what are we thinking? So that's like one of the things that quantum physics just expands the realm of the possible to unimaginable degree. Here's another trippy thing about your question. Whatever the present moment is, quantum physics says, oh, when we think of the past, all of the potential pasts that could have resulted in this present moment actually exist in a state of potentiality. And it's only in this moment when we actually think of the past in a certain way, we literally, it's as if we extend back into the past through time and call forth or create that very past that didn't even fully exist objectively until the moment that we contemplated in this moment. So you see, quantum physics in a way collapses the past and the future and the present moment, in that they're all enfolded. And Einstein was aware of this, but Einstein couldn't wrap his mind around what quantum physics was saying. And he was one of the founding fathers. And why that was, he was, and he openly confesses this. This isn't just my opinion. He couldn't let go. He was attached to that there was an objective world out there separate from the observer, that the moon existed separate from somebody who was watching it. But quantum physics points out that this universe is like this rainbow. And this is so, talk about trippy. When there's a rainbow, think about what a rainbow is. There's water, there's light, and there's a mind, right? When you're seeing an image of a rainbow, there's no objective rainbow. You're seeing an image inside of your mind. Quantum physics is saying that's the nature of this universe, and so is Buddhism. That's the nature of this universe, that this universe exists in that same state as the rainbow, where there is nothing objective out there. But when you're actually experiencing the universe, you're experiencing something inside of your psyche, which is to point at that this is a dream. You see, quantum physics empirically 100% has proven that we're having a collective dream. what a lot of the quantum physicists, I mean, they're not trained in this way. You see, it's the greatest discovery in all of history in science. That there's no debate about, but it's very controversial what quantum physics is pointing at. And, there are all these conflicting theories. And I'm not a physicist at all, but I'm a dreamer who had this experience in 1981, and quantum physics helped to explain to me what I was realizing. And in essence, what I'm saying is that, yeah, when a way to heal all those conflicting theories about what is the meaning of quantum physics, because all of the great physicists are saying that we still haven't discovered the central idea. And they say it's going to be the most simple idea, and when we realize it, we're going to go, how could we have been so blind? And I'm pointing out, this is the idea. The idea is that this is a dream, and that's the meaning. That's what quantum physics is showing us. It's revealing the dream. It's an expression of the dreamlike nature, and it's introducing us, and it's an emanation of the very dream that it's expressing. And I'm just saying it's available. It's being offered to all of us. It's right in front of our eyes. And when we see this, it can not only help us to awaken to the dreamlike nature and to our dreamlike nature, but it then unlocks the most enormous creativity. And that's the elixir, that's the medicine to heal the malady, the mind virus. I've written all about this mind virus. I have 2 more books coming out about it. That's afflicting our species. That's at the bottom of the insanity and the evil that we're playing out.
Okay, so because dreams were mentioned and dreaming a few times, I know that Glenn's going to want to chime in here and ask some questions and bring some things to the front.
All right, my turn. So thank you for all that. That's really amazing. As you mentioned this, in several different ways, you've touched on this idea of the creative spirit that we all are. We're using it against ourselves. And I know I've listened to some of the podcasts you've done and read a little bit on your website, which is amazing. Really excellent articles on there. That when we're worrying about something, when we're imagining worst case scenarios, when we're doing all of that with our imagination and just either creating situations where it just reinforces our own belief about the nature of people or reality or whatever, it's a no-win situation. It just goes on and on. Now, my approach to this, I kind of grew up, since I was about 16, my sister handed me a couple of books. She gave me some of the Castaneda books and then the Seth books, like the Jane Roberts stuff, right? So my understanding of this comes through the Seth tradition primarily, which is essentially, we're creating our own reality through our beliefs. You get what you concentrate on. It's a bit like what Jesus says, it's done unto you as you believe. There are many faith traditions that kind of, they're all like spokes on a wheel, in the hub in the center. That's the truth. As it changes, it may be, it's still some kind of truth that we search for. So one book I've been getting into again lately with the Seth material is the Dreams, Evolution, and Value Fulfillment. And this is triggered by you talking about dreams so much. And I'm thinking, yeah, I know Seth talked about this stuff a lot with, the notion is that rather than Einstein's kind of clinging on to matter comes first, there's an objective world. The explanation from Jane Roberts and Seth is basically, we were dream first. Consciousness went from creation of consciousness into something. It went from consciousness units, we'll say, into electromagnetic units, which then form matter, right? But the main part of the book is essentially saying we were mostly dreaming, and when we were in this reality, we were waking up and learning how to feed ourselves, how to eventually reproduce, and this kind of thing, which is very trippy when you think about it from the flip side. But the beautiful vision there is that we are a dream. We are born out of this idea of the creativity is like you think of something and it's instantly there, right? And in our dreams, we definitely can experience that. Once we wake up, we're sort of locked into this totally conflicting view of reality, right? But I think you're like what you're saying about the Wetiko stuff. I have this idea of when we come into this world and we're born, our soul says that we're going to incarnate many times, but we take each one. And it's like that idea of when you go into a computer, when you have a device or you buy Windows or whatever, and you have to click on the I accept the terms of use of this software. This is like all of the details about how you create reality, and we're divinely connected and all the stuff. We click yes, and then we ignore it. We just get in here and we just like, oh, but this is happening. This must be real because this hurts. This is painful. This is, this makes me feel fearful. So the dream stuff, and I think I've read or heard you speak about your the groups that you hold with doing dream workshops, as I understand it. That's ongoing for you. So can I just ask you about that? Is that something that you find useful for yourself, but you were able to help other people either through lucid dreaming or intuitively experiencing, like how to interpret the dreams and what they mean for the individual person? Is that something that you?
Yeah, there's a couple things I want to address. One is when you had said, yeah, we've signed a contract and then we ignore our powers. And I agree with that, but I would almost say we forget and that we have amnesia, that somehow once we incarnate in this realm, we've forgotten our superhero powers. And that's the idea of to retrieve the soul, to remember, to put ourselves back together. But it's not just that simple, because it's as if there's some sort of like darker force that's invested in keeping us asleep. And I say as if, because I don't want to make that darker. I don't want to invest that with any like reality, with objective reality, or that it exists, because no, that's not true. But I think it's important to frame our circumstance in a really accurate way and be accurate with our language, because the way we use words, we spellcast. We are literally not just describing reality, we're invoking and creating it by our use of how we use words. Right. And then, yeah, I have, so I had this experience in 1981 of realizing, oh my God, this is a dream. It was like I had become lucid in a dream. And then the next thing I know, I was like locked up and beaten back asleep, but I was taking notes, and I still stayed connected to that lucidity. But that was unbelievably traumatic on top of the trauma that catalyzed my awakening, because that's why I had the awakening. I was in so much pain that I went inwards trying to deal with the suffering, and that catalyzed my awakening. And then the psychiatric thing on top of that just was like a double martini of suffering. And so I was just unbelievably over the top in suffering when I got out of the last hospital in 82. And then, it took me a long while, like over a decade, 12 years, 13 years, to work on myself till, go to therapy, dream, create, study Jung, Buddhism, alchemy, shamanism, anything that really ignited my intuition. And then I realized, well, I'm still a work in progress, but I have something to offer. And that's when I started these groups. And the groups are basically, because as I was stabilizing my lucidity about the dreamlike nature, I was realizing, wow, what if bring people together who, to whatever degree, were all plugged into the dreamlike nature? And what if we really stepped into that? Because all the spiritual traditions are saying, in one way or another, this is a dream. What if we took that seriously? What if we stepped into the dream and saw and interpreted our experience moment by moment as if it were a dream? What would that look like? And so in a way, that's a very simple way of describing what the groups are. And, they're unbelievably psychoactive. And, I could go on about people are really asking me to write a book about it. And I will, at least I hope to when I have some time, because I have all this other stuff I'm writing about. But there's a way of us hanging out together in community, in essence. It's the real Sangha of the Buddhism, the three jewels, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, teacher, teaching, and the Sangha is the community. That there is a way of hanging out with each other where we can actually, I call it, to dream ourselves awake. And we can actually conspire to co-inspire each other. That's a real conspiracy theory. We can activate the genius, the collective genius in all of us that's in the field where, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. There's something available to us when we connect with other people who are awakening that is not available when we're just by ourselves. And that's one of the main things about my work, is trying to bring forth that vision, not just a vision, but that literal possibility, that real experience, that there is a way of us being together and hooking up where we can actually we can transform the dream being the waking dream. And that's evolutionary. That's to realize we actually are being called to participate in our own evolution. That's what my work is about. And that's what's being offered to us. And if we don't realize that, I can guarantee you one thing, and that is we'll be fated to continue to destroy ourselves.
Yeah. And the number of people, I've heard you reference that a few times in other podcasts and so forth. We talk about there's a tipping point of a number of people that have this sort of consciousness where they are aware and they are willing to reach out and share and learn and teach and connect. That, like, I think for me, it's not so much a definite number of people. It's just, but there is some kind of a tipping point where
Yeah.
the
It's
more
the
you
100th
realize,
monkey. It's like
yeah,
the 100th monkey phenomena, or in the Revelations, the book of Revelations, they talk about 144,000. And
yeah,
the way I understand that, it's a symbolic number.
right,
And it's like, if you have, you're making bread, you want to have the yeast, sufficient yeast for the bread to rise,
mhm,
you know. And in the or beautiful image is like when you have a glass of water and you're putting sugar, you're just dissolving grains of sugar in the water one by one, and it just dissolves and dissolves. It reaches that saturation point. You add one more grain of sugar and a crystal will spontaneously manifest. That that point might be in this very moment, somebody recognizing their shadow, or waking up to the dreamlike nature, or seeing the quantum nature of this universe and of themselves, or just waking up to who they are, the dreamlike nature. Any one of us having that moment of expansion of consciousness, even in this very moment, might be that grain of sugar that catalyzes a global awakening in the entire
mhm.
species.
Yeah. And just one more thing, like with that in mind, I mean, I've been doing a lot of work internally, just trying to figure out the current worldwide change situation with the response to the COVID thing. And for me, it's like human consciousness. I mean, as well as other forms of consciousness. But I think we just made a decision to pause, and each for our different reasons. But we can use this time to kind of say, well, what's going on, what's important to me, um, how can I serve, how can I change, how can I do things differently, because for example, there are many different reasons why you want to hit the brakes, to stop and say, okay, it's enough, because the planet is going through this, the rights of people here, or that's enough of that. The food system is getting messed up or whatever. So we've each got our own subjective viewpoint, but collectively we still have kind of agreed to pause. And now, as we start moving out of it, it's going to be interesting to see, because things like media have changed. There's less reliance on the old forms of media. People are connecting through the internet a lot more. They're making their own networks, and I think this has been a good opportunity in a way, even though I wouldn't necessarily want to go through it again. It's been an interesting experience, to be able to, you know, connect with people in different ways like this. It's just interesting to me that it's a curse and a blessing, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah. And that's exactly it. You know, when I talk about like the mind virus, the Wetiko mind virus, you know, it's the it's the source of the greatest evil in humanity, and in secretly encoded within it is this incredible blessing. You know, it's a quantum phenomenon. It has a superposition of states in it. It's both like the deepest evil and like the most incredible gift, and how it actually manifests. Because, you know, and that's a whole other conversation. I mean, I'm happy to talk about it a little bit, but if we don't have the recognition of what Wetiko is showing us, because it's a mind virus, it's at the bottom, like I was saying, of all the insanity and all the evil that's playing out in our world. But if we don't have and it operates through our blind spots and through the projective tendencies of the mind in such a way that we become entranced by our projections and think the world is objective, and then become conditioned by our, you know, by our projections, and we you know, create a cocoon around ourselves and we suffocate ourselves. And the whole source of that process is our own mind. So that's the example of what Tico is such an incredible source of the evil and the insanity. But if Wetiko didn't exist, we would have to invent it, because it's the greatest catalyst for human evolution that we've ever known. And, you know, encoded in that, in the pathology of it, it's actually helping us to wake up to the dreamlike nature and helping us to wake up to who we are. And if I could just give an example, like, you know, in a night dream. So just imagine you're in a night dream, and then you know, you're having a particular point of view, and the night dream, which is nothing other than your own mind, just instantaneously reflects that point of view, because a night dream is just reflecting the very mind that's observing it. It's a quantum system. There's no separate dream than the mind that's observing it. It's all one. And so you're holding a viewpoint. That viewpoint is manifesting as the dream. Well, if you don't know the nature of your situation, that you're just inside of your own mind, you now have all the evidence confirming that you're actually seeing, you know, reality, and it exists objectively. And so then you become fixed in a viewpoint of, oh, well, I'm just seeing what's actually separate from me. That's the hangover, the objective reality hangover. And then being a dream is nothing other than a reflection of your own mind. When you get fixed and entrenched in the viewpoint of thinking that what you're seeing is just, you know, separate from you, it will instantaneously reflect back and shapeshift and give you all the evidence that it is objective and separate from you. Mm-hmm. And that's and ad infinitum, that's a feedback loop in which you've entranced yourselves, you've hypnotized yourselves by your own creative genius. That's Wetiko. And that's a way of describing, to the extent that we're asleep, how we've fallen under the spell of the creative genius of our own mind in the waking dream. And that's why I'm saying to like see through that and unlock that, and to realize that dynamic connects you with your Buddha nature, with your Christ nature, with your creative genius, however you say it, and unlocks the most unimaginable creativity. And when you connect with other people who are having that realization, we can change the world. And the way to understand that is like, imagine a dream, and imagine a night dream where you've become lucid. Your dream ego is recognized. Oh my God, I'm dreaming. And imagine other of your dream characters in that dream have become lucid. And you come together and you hang out and you trip out on what you're realizing. Oh my God, this universe we're in is manifesting the way it is because it's a function of our dreaming. We've been conditioned based on limitation and trauma to dream it up in this horrific, nightmarish way. But when you come together, you realize, wait a second, we have our sacred power of dreaming, is what I call it, where we can actually get in sync with each other and change the dream we're having. That's what I mean about participating in our own evolution. That's completely, openly, freely offered to us. It's available to us right now. That's what I'm trying to get out to people. I'm only one person. There are many, many people who are having this realization. And when we connect with each other, you know, then all bets are off.
Ooh.
Okay. Thank you for all that. I'm being mindful of the time, and I think we have about 5 minutes left where we can talk about stuff. And there are so many different things. But the thing that I think that stands out for me the most right now over this last little while, when you and Glenn have kind of been going back and forth, is the individual versus the collective, I guess. And how, Paul, you had mentioned a little while ago, no, I just wrote power in the collective that isn't there. Well, okay, so there's this experience that I have had in meditation where I meditate on my own. There are different forms of meditation that I engage in, that change and evolve over time. And even though I can have super amazing, powerful, transcendent experiences on my own, there is still power that I feel and expansion that I feel when with a group, in a group together. And even more so online, sort of like at present, like together with people in a room versus even online. And I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on sort of, is this just sort of, is there an amplification that takes place when people are physically closer together because of our perception or what we're in relationship to, how we're experiencing, this meditative experience that we're co-creating, versus when we're doing it on our own or even online from afar? And I ask this because the philosophy that we study, and even when we're talking quantum physics, science is energy, that everything is energy. Everything is this creative energy that is just expressing and evolving and expanding, forming and informing all the time right now. So what does it matter if we are in the same room with one person or 1,000 people, or we are across the globe, not even knowing that, we're meditating at the same time, kind of thing?
Yeah, well, no, I hear that. I appreciate that. And quantum physics is showing that this universe, it's a non-local universe. And what that means is that, you know, think about like third dimensional time and space, that the way this universe works, it's not, in a way, kind of in this limited way, bound by the laws of third dimensional space and time, where, for example, light has a speed limit and all that, that things, quantum physics has shown that something that happens on, think of, if we can conceive of the opposite side of the universe, instantaneously faster than the speed of light, will affect something on the other side of the universe. The point is, that's a real kind of complicated way of saying that every part of this universe in space and time is not separate from each other. It's all interconnected because the quantum universe is a seamless whole. And what that means, yeah, there's real benefit to hanging out in the same room physically and seeing each other and feeling each other's energy and hugging and, all the interactions we have when we're in person. And that being said, any one of us having like this revelatory moment, because keep in mind, quantum physics is a revelation. I just gave a whole talk about this at a big conference a little while ago, pointing out that, it was sort of, quantum physics was sort of hidden and coded within the fabric of our minds and of the higher dimensions of the universe. And there's this phenomena of hidden treasures. When we get off balance, we literally will dream up. There's a whole Tibetan Buddhist tradition about this, and it happens every night when we dream. Our dreams are compensations. When we get off balance, we will literally, invoke a compensatory symbolic dreaming to help us back to awaken. And quantum physics, is one of these hidden treasures that's encoded in our minds and encoded in the universe, that we dreamed up at exactly the right moment to help us to awaken. So the point is that when any of us has realization of our nature, of who we are, that actually non-locally, instantaneously, fast, in no time at all, gets registered all throughout every corner of the universe. And the way to understand that, a beautiful image, is Indra's net. And Indra's net is this interconnected net of these jewels, these inner reflective jewels that extend all throughout space and time. And they all, so any one jewel reflects all the other jewels because they're reflective, right? And think about each of those jewels as being any one of us. So what that means is that when any one of us has realization of whatever degree of who we are or the nature of the dream, we've added more light to ourselves, and that light instantaneously gets reflected through the entire universe, which then gets reflected back to us in a feedback loop. And what I'm pointing at is that, you see, when you plug into who we are to source, it's a positive feedback loop where we can literally, when we express, for example, our nature, love and compassion, and give our gifts to people, it's not like there's a scarcity and then we get depleted. No, the way it works is that when we're plugged into source, the more we express that, and the more we express the love and compassion that is our nature, the more that we have. And it's like we're like this 0 point energy, entity, or whatever you would call us, that actually, when we plug into the source, we're able to resource, create infinite resources that, continually feed ourselves and everyone. And that's what all the spiritual traditions are talking about. And that's what quantum physics is actually pointing towards. And that's available to us. It's not just like, oh yeah, one day in the future, maybe we'll tap into that. No, we already not only have tapped into it, we are that. And just one final thing, people in the know who really are switched onto this, they say the greatest obstacle for us having this realization, the powers that be, they don't want people to realize what quantum physics is showing us, for example, because we'd be empowered. We would be all of a sudden connecting with this incredible creative genius. That's not the obstacle. The obstacle is that people can't even believe the good news. It's like, and that limited mindset of just like, no, they don't realize, to them it's like, no, that can't be possible. And like all the spiritual, traditions are saying, no, it's completely, not only is it possible, but there's like this demand that that this is what it's all about. And more people are waking up to this. And all that I'm trying to do is sort of, I don't know, just creatively articulate it in a way that helps people to see it. Because the whole thing about Wetiko, this mind virus, it's a form of blindness. It's a form of not seeing.
Mm-hmm.
If you remember, I said it operates through our blind spots.
Mm-hmm.
And so all we need to do is open our eyes and look, and we have everything that we need. So yeah, that's what my work is about.
Beautiful.
Amazing. And thank you for bringing in Indra's Nat, because that is such an exquisite image. I just, every time it comes sort of into my purview, most recently through your book, I think Amit Goswami mentioned it in his book, which was, we did the Everything Answer book a few months ago in our class.
Mhm.
And the first time that I came across it was a few years ago when I read Mark Nepo's 7,000 Ways to Listen. And he referenced it in there as well. And so yeah, thank you for that beautiful image. So I do have one last quick question, probably before we get onto the super rapid fire question round. On your website, there are a bunch of blogs and blog posts and articles and things, and there is artwork on there. Is that your artwork by any chance?
Well, the artwork, I'm not sure. I have a mandala that's in the banner that I drew because I'm an artist.
Yeah.
But I don't know
So
what. Yeah.
I read a couple of articles. I think there's some of the more recent ones. One in which you're talking about the coronavirus, and someone walks into your office and says, "I have this dream," and talks about it. It's like
Right.
happening. But the image that's there is like,
Oh yeah, no, that's just my web guy just found that image.
okay, all
Yeah,
right. Because there
totally.
was another one that was kind
Yeah.
of similar, and I thought, oh, I wonder if this is if it's
Right. No, but I do draw and paint. But right now my main medium of creative expression is writing.
writing.
Yeah.
And you are writing. You're working on 2 books.
Yeah, I have. So I have a new book on Wetiko coming out this fall, and then another book on Wetiko, because Wetiko, Castaneda, Don Juan, in the Castaneda books calls it the topic of topics. He doesn't use the name Wetiko. It's the most important thing to understand in the world today by far. There's not even a competition if we don't understand what it's revealing to us, we're fated to destroy ourselves. So I have 2 new books, one in the fall, one the next year on Wetiko coming out for sure.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. We're going to look out for those. Okay. So for now, before we wrap things up, I'm going to turn things over to Glenn, and he's going to usher in the super rapid fire question round. And I'm just going to time things. So basically, Paul, all you need to do is just answer the questions off the top of your head, no deep thought or anything like that. It's just kind of a fun way to end the show.
And then you get something in return.
Yeah. A prize.
Okay. So
Okay, great.
ready, Lass?
Ready and go.
Okay, Paul, do you dance at weddings?
Uh-huh.
Do you watch television?
Not really, except for sports and the national news, because I want to see how the propaganda is being presented.
Okay. Which do you prefer, cats or dogs?
That's a hard question to answer because they're both in a quantum superposition. It's my favorites.
Okay, Carl Jung or John Wheeler? Even harder.
That I've imagined a conversation with them, since I wrote the quantum physics book, so I can't choose.
Okay, reading or writing?
To me, they're inseparable.
Digital or analog?
I would say analog.
Okay, creativity or imagination?
There's no difference.
Kindness or compassion?
No difference.
Meditation or contemplation?
Same.
Lucid dreaming or lucid waking?
There's no difference.
Okay, 21st century or 20th century?
Can I get back to you on that?
Ding, ding,
Sure,
ding, ding, ding.
In the 25th century.
That was fun. That was like speed chess or something. Wow,
Yeah.
that was great.
I saw your strategy early on. Everything's the same. Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. Well, I know it's hard for me to differentiate, really.
Okay, so a very short thing I'm going to read to you. It's from a wonderful book by Richard Wagamese. He's an Ojibwe. He passed away a few years ago.
Oh, okay.
An author. He wrote a book on one Ojibwe's meditations. The book is called Embers. It's
Okay.
fantastic. So this is what he's saying on this page. My elders say that the dream world is a reality, just as valid, just as vibrant, just as alive as the physical world. Illusory things. They are meant to teach us, guide us. They ask us to use our intuition to interpret them. That's their biggest gift, returning us to our intuition, our highest level of thought. When we intuit, we think spiritually with a free flowing energy. In the physical world, that's where compassion is born, the place where there are no differences. Dream big, bright, and shining. Enjoy the images. Intuition will teach you the meaning.
Wow, that's beautiful. Can you send me the link to that book? Because I want to get that book. My intuition is telling me, I should have that book.
Amazing, will do. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Thank you.
Oh, all right. Paul Levy, thank you so much for your time, for your insights, for your wisdom, for your presence, for your participation, observation, everything that has just taken place and that is going to continue to just percolate and send its tendrils out over time, space, and beyond right now. Honey Bunch, thank you so much for being here today and co-steering the show once again. I do want to ask, just for anyone who is interested in finding out more about who and what Paul Levy is, what your work is, how to get in touch with you, to connect with you, Paul, where would they go to find that information?
Well, they would go within, but you can go to awakeninthedream.com.
Okay.
That's my website. And there's a ton of articles all for free. It's not monetized at all. You can, if you want to talk to me, you can do a session or you can buy my books. But other than that, it's all free. A ton of interviews, and articles that I've written. And on the website is, you can, send me an email through the website. And I would love to hear from people. So thank you.
All right, that's exactly what we did. I wrote an email, and like it says on there, Paul reads every email personally.
Yeah, totally.
And he did, and that's how we got to here. So thank you.
Great.
So thank you once again, and thank you to everyone who tuned in for today's episode. My name is Lastia. I've been here with Glenn. Our guest today has been Mr. Paul Levy. And we are so grateful for your presence. So if you are listening, if you are watching, however you are engaging with us today, we are so grateful for all of it. And join us again soon for another episode of Who Do You Think You Are? Bye for now.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Take care. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
This has been an episode of Who Do You Think You Are? An exploration into how our thoughts, beliefs, and feelings create our reality. My name is Lassia Kohut, and I have been your host. My co-host has been Glenn Sheridan. We'd like to thank the following for helping make this podcast a reality. Today's special guest, Paul Levy. Music, Vasco Lorenco, copyright 123rf.com. Background illustration, Sakma Sterke, copyright 123rf.com. For more information on this podcast and our Lassia Kohut Soul Excavator, please visit www.lassiakohut.com. If you like what you've heard, please like, subscribe, and let us know by leaving a comment. Thanks for tuning into Who Do You Think You Are?